So I'll take this down a notch now. So I'll make it a little bit, I don't want to say practical, but I'll make it a little bit more design-led. Because what Al has told us about is all about customer journey, making sure it's contextualized and all of that. But so I'm going to fly the flag a bit for the design side of it, because it's got an important role to play in it. So as a background, I am a user interface, user experience designer at Sabio, so I live and breathe that. I do that every day, and there's a few of you in the audience that have seen me face to face working on that project. So it will be quite a bit led by the IVR world and the digital world, but stay with me, the concepts do exist. So that's what I do at Sabio, but what's even more interesting is I'm building a house. And part of this, I needed to figure out last week or the week before, how many solar panels can I put on the roof? Solar being a very good cue with the sun streaming in here. How many solar panels can I put on the roof? So my supplier, you know that. It wasn't a question for the audience. The way that works in the UK is you go to your energy supplier and you ask them. That's what I was told by my supplier. So off I go, find phone numbers, do a bit of internet research, phone, and then I went through that normal exercise that we've all been through. You end up with someone who's very confident and confidently telling you you should be ringing that number. You confidently ring that number, and they confidently tell you it's off-gem. And all of that, and then in the end, you know what's coming. You end up with the first team again, and you confidently tell them that I need to help you. And that's what they do. Because you happen to get through to an agent that helps you, that provides you with a good experience. So what did I have there? I had a bad user experience, which was me looking at the website, me getting stuck in jargon, either be that with the first person I'm talking to, where the website information wasn't there for me, it didn't support me. In the end, I ended up with someone who gave me a good customer experience because they were helpful. They focused on my needs. And I want us to take away from that example that there is something that we today call customer experience, which is something that is linked to your relationship with the organization. It's about your survey, your journey, all of the good stuff that we've heard that Al was talking about your journey, about the relationship that you've got. But within that, sits something that is a user experience. And if you want, you can look at that as an enabler. This is design-based. This is making sure that what I expose to you is working for you. It's about usability. It's about interaction. So our role when we're doing the UX design, is to ensure that our gap is minimized. So if we're giving a bad user experience, we will be creating a bad customer experience. It will harm our relationship. It's always so hard to talk to your Mr. Utility. And some organizations are very good at that, and they're brand-led and all of that, and we think of them as providing good customer experience. So we need to hone into that. So I'll fly the flag for the user experience. For the benefit of this, let's just think about your customer experience is a relationship with a company, and your user experience is a relationship with the platform, with the product, with the service. And they interplay. What's really important is that we think about that as a perception. And that goes into some of what Al is saying, that it's not just the cold data. You don't just look at the data. It's about the perception, what is perceived, and I'll show you some example how that works in the design space. With user experience and user experience design, it's very similar to what you're doing from a journey design perspective. You do focus on the needs, on your customers' needs. What do they need? And the UK Design Council, and that's a very, very old quote. It is about product design, but it's also about service design. If it's good for what I need, then I will feel comfortable, the effort will be low, I feel a sense of satisfaction that comes through. So So we want to avoid that. The design people know exactly what that road needs to look like because it fits so nicely into urban planning. But the experience that we have is that, I just want to get over there. I find my way there. So what we want to get to is not that pretty thing there, and hopefully that planner isn't here who landed us with this, but we want to get to that bit and make that as pretty. Because that supports me, because my need is to get over there, because that's where I live. So the tools that we use for that, and we've used them quite a lot at various levels within organizations, again, mirror what we've just heard. We do look at the users, but we look at them more, so when we're looking at design, we're looking at them more from a practical perspective as a resource that we need. So we need to create ourselves a resource that we can test our design against. So that means we go through a generation of what we call archetypes. And they may be very, very similar to your customer segments. And your customer segments, when you do customer segments in your marketing team, sales, like that kind of thing, we come up with lovely customer segments, and I just went to a company the other day, and they presented these 8 customer segments and their personas, and they all had names like go-getter, busy family mom, that kind of thing. We take it a notch down. Because it's very hard to have a conversation during design where we go, the busy mom will do X, Y, and Z. It's much easier to say, Mel is doing that. So we can relate to it, humanize it, as we heard from Al. Humanize it, create a face. We sometimes create a face, it isn't really required, but you need to understand the essence. You need to understand a few features, bits that you get from stats, age, gender, social demographics, and all of that. But what you also want to put in there is motivation, mindset, experience. Because experience drives what we do. For those of you who switch from an iPhone to a Samsung or Android phone, they will know what I mean. Because there's just ways in which you do things on an iPhone, and there's ways in which you do things on an Android phone. That's experience. We need to understand that. So my archetype is someone who changes technology all the time. Let's verbalize that. Let's make sure we understand that. So that gives us a set of people to design for. And that's the people we will design for. Sometimes you may be in the room and put them up on the wall and say, let's just remind us who we designed for. We can always go back to them. And then we look at, in your particular product that you're developing, in your service that you're developing, what does that user want to achieve? And that is slightly different from what you get in the call center, for instance, from your wrap-up codes. That's not what they call us for. That's not payment, because you have realized that payment is the outcome of the conversation. You've had your agent in there that did a translation task. They translated from whatever your caller told them to, oh, actually, in this case, you need to go payment, and then that's the outcome of the call. But we got there throughout the call. And there's technologies these days where you can actually work with that and figure out speech analytics, all of that there's a journey. But we need to start off, if we're saying, here's a new piece of technology or service, we need to start off and actually figure out what is it you want to achieve. What does success mean? How do you define success? When will you come away from it and go, this is good? We write this down. We write down, Kim, the busy mum, or Mel actually was, he just renamed you, I'm sorry for that. Mel, she's just got a letter, she's a bit confused about it, she calls up and figures out what she needs to do. We know it leads to payment, she doesn't quite know. So we verbalize it in Mel's words. May have a slide that's got a slant to it then, if it's in Mel's words. So we verbalize it in the callers, in our users' words. And that then helps us to come up with a high-level definition. How do we support them in that task? And you heard a very, very similar story from, or very similar words from Al. How do we need to support that? How do we need to make sure that we help Mel with her payment, with her question? What barriers are there that we need to remove? And if we're looking at a piece of technology, barriers may be time, because you don't want to go through it for a long time. But you also may find that, a barrier is if we give you 6 or 8 different options and none of them apply because, you should know who I am and all of that. But we do a high-level definition of that. And the key is high level. Because if I walk into a room and we all are in a situation where we need to share that around, and we're not necessarily in a customer-centered organization just yet, we don't have Al's mindset just yet, we need to describe that to people. And I've been in so many situations where you're trying to verbalize the design, and you're having these conversations about concepts. If the customer wants to do this, should they not be then answering this question and that question first? If we put something in a high-level design, we can put words against it and say, if I say this, would it not sound like that? Take it down to its practice, because that's how we experience it. How does it feel? Because it's very emotional what we experience, or how we use our technologies. We feel it. So at a high level, we iterate it. We define our interaction, our problem, our solving of the problem. And that's not necessarily even looking at technology at that point. That's not even looking at whether the technology can support that. We're looking at the technology in the next step when we put all the design together. How do we respond? How does it all fit together? How is the data organized? All of that kind of stuff. And this is all driven by something that years ago you referred to as a mental model. That's because we're humans. We make sense of the world around us. So we've got the world around us. That's got shapes and colors. But anyone in here, so we've got lots of different people here, these different people may be looking at things in a different way. So Tim may be looking at this and seeing shapes, squares. So his model, so he makes sense of a service, of a product, and in his mind, it's just predominantly shapes, squares. Then we may have John. He sees colors, blue. Well, actually, if it's John, it's probably gray, but sees colors, predominantly colors. But then there's also, Jo. Random, no concept of it. So can you see these people, and then there's always someone who can't see anything, or, as a model of, God no, it's an orange square. Can you see how these people around here, they are our archetypes. They go through a use case. So once we've got that understanding that they may be looking and perceiving what we do with them, what we do for them in a different way, we realize that we need to react to that. So we've just done that. We've gone through the models, we've gone through the modeling, and we've done it all as a design. So we've got everything that we need to put in place, say, an IVR service. And that's not a problem. It is a problem because it's not playing. So what we've got, so this clip that I'm not going to play to you, is a clip around how emotion is shaped by the audio. So in this clip, we've got a computer interacting. I can play it later when we figure out how to play that. You've got a very matter-of-fact computer talking back to you. Now, for those of us that have an iPhone or an iPad, we've probably realized a bit that Stu was saying earlier, there was an update and we had new voices. So what the Siri voice, the new Siri voice, has got more functionality. So we heard earlier that in the background, the technology that's used to generate that voice is different. But what's gone into it, what's really interesting for an experienced person is that the naturalness has gone back in again. And this is about intonation. This is about pausing. This is how you deliver meaning. So when we think about what we want to do, we then need to pull it into the domain that we do it in. If we do it over the phone, if we do it through Skype or whatever it is, if we do it audio-wise, we need to recognize that there is a channel that shapes what we do. So we need to work with items that a lot of you will be familiar with, that, in leadership, we call them emotional intelligence. The empathy, the E word, we've just heard about empathy, but there's an empathy as you relating to you in a relationship as a customer, but there's also a level of empathy that you have in a particular interaction. And how do we work with this? Well, we make sure that we're context sensitive. We make sure that your avatar, your virtual agent, is context sensitive, knows that you've just asked a question and you got a poor answer or perceived poor answer. We keep context. We deal with you using the words that we don't want to put on a slide, potentially. We deal with anger. We notice anger. We notice frustration. We deal with that. We set expectations, and that runs through all about this. One of the most important things when you're interacting with someone, with an object, with a human, is that you have a sense of predictability. You know where it's going. You know what's happening next. You feel that you're not at the mercy of it. There's still lots of people, probably including me, at the supermarket, at the checkout, self-checkout, no, not doing that because I haven't done it, so I don't want to do that when there's loads of people behind me. Once I get that confidence, that's because I can predict what happens next. I can react to it before it even happens. And if we have something like this, if the idea comes through from previous experience, if our archetype has used the previous service, if we know that, then we can design for that and make it feel more comfortable. Collaboration. If you're trying to use an automated system, a bot, whatever it is, you want to start from the premise that you want to work together to achieve a goal. So you want to, bounce off each other. Again, setting expectation, give reasons why you're potentially asking a very quirky question. And that's not as simple as saying, thanks for calling, make sure you've got your customer account number ready because I'll be asking you for it in 2 minutes. It's not like that. It's more subtle than that. It is realizing what's happening. Self-awareness. You need to know what channel you're in. So one of the really strong things about an audio channel versus a visual channel is a lot of what we do in communication is delivered visually. So if you out there, monitor yourself out there, when you talk to someone, you know when that conversation has come to an end, when that train of thought has come to an end. Without having to listen to the words, you know it's just stalled, because the face will tell you. You get us, okay? And you start looking around. So visual delivers a lot of meaning. Intonation does deliver a lot of meaning as well. It's about what do I stress, what's important, and what's least important in many ways, and that's very old studies, is the words that come through. It's about how they are delivered. And that's, almost the premises of, if you want to give good customer experience, draw that back, how you deliver it, how you deliver the user experience in a particular part, it becomes really, really important. Just one example out of the field that I operate in a lot. If I ask, would you like the gate information for the international flight? It's quite different from, would you like the gate information for the international flight? Because that delivers the message that I know that you want the gate information. I know that, context. I know it's gate information. Is it the international flight? Whereas this one says, would you like the gate information for the international flight? So it grounds it. It says, I got what you told me before. I'm just asking for the next bit. So I've made progress. One thing, back to time, we want to see progress when we interact with people, when we have technology, all of that. So that's some concepts that we've got in the field of design. I mean, there's much more. So I haven't talked about cultural concepts. an interface could look very different in a different culture. Brand, I want to communicate brand through that. So how do I do that? It all comes into it. But I just wanted to give you a bit of a flavor here, what kind of things we need to think about on top of just, oh, what's the experience? What can I do? But also, how can I do it? We've got so many different types of technology and touch points. You've got your virtual assistant, you've got your messaging, you've got your email, you've got your IVRs, natural language, all of that you've got. So you want to, and that's when the mindset for a customer experience-led company comes in. You want to make sure that you use the same thought process when you think about every one of these. Because you want to make sure that what you do is consistent across all the channels. Again, predictability there. It's appropriate. If I've got my little phone, I can't show you as much information on that little screen as I can on a laptop or on an iPad. Make it appropriate, what you show. Appropriate also means for the scenario you're in. Years ago, we developed and designed an application, or a service application for a credit card company. Great, we went through all of that and designed it, and it sort of worked. But what we discovered is that this was an online bank. It was Egg. It was an online bank. So your phone channel wasn't a self-service channel predominantly. Your phone channel was an escalation channel. So you could argue it wasn't necessarily appropriate that we have a wonderful design and a wonderful service for you to make payments and all of that, because really all you rang up about is that payment's gone wrong, I need to talk to someone. So let's think about making it appropriate. Write the right use case for it. Needs to be relevant. Any information that we give needs to be relevant. We don't just put information up there because it may be useful. Back to Al's example of the Google. We don't need to know what these guys look like. If I want to know, I can type it in. What do these guys look like? And it needs to be expected. There's different ways we communicate that. For anything that's got a visual aspect, you've got your graphical user interface. How do you do the architecture? How do you use the screen estate? What colors do you use? Videos, avatars. What does that avatar look like? Young or not so young? In the audio world, you've got voice prompting, menus, all of that. How guiding am I? All of that is affected. And all of that you need to take through, as Stu said in the very beginning, with a designer who's got the eye for detail, who doesn't just go, oh yeah, we'll just ask him for this jargon word and then we'll say yes or no. No. Think about Mel again, whether Mel will connect the dots. Do the connect the dots check. But you also shape what you do, the experience, by how you organize your data. I'm using you a lot today, aren't I? You can tell me off later. Now, we go through the user needs. We just decided user needs design. We've created the damn thing. We get you to engage, and then that's that important loop. It's green. It's important. It's super important. Analysis. Make sense of it. Bring it back. But don't just bring it back to the design stage or to the create stage. Often we bring it back straight to the create stage. Customer told us in the voice of the customer or the CSAT survey that they got confused by this. Oh yeah, I know just the thing to do. I'll just add another feature. Take it straight back. Take it back to your archetypes. That's what you've got them. They're not, well, they are getting older because we all are, but they're not necessarily just there to gather dust. Take it, test your design against it. Make sure, maybe another feature has gone. Maybe your use case doesn't exist anymore. Just take it back all the way. And that doesn't take long. For all this analysis, this comes in lots of different guises. It comes in guises of, you can prototype. I mean, these days it's great. You've got online tools to prototype all sorts of things. Be it graphical, with sketches, SketchUp, that kind of thing. You can do all your prototyping, all of that. Prototype it, take it out, get some people to use it, real customers to use it. Run usability trials. Bring customers in, real customers in, sit them down, controlled environment, ask them about their experience straight after the experience happened. Query, confront them. Do A to B testing. And on websites, we do that a lot. A to B. You put a service up with, say, one website, and the same service with a second website, and then you compare. Real life scenario, a customer doesn't know that you've actually got two faces. Do A/B testing. Use your customer feedback. All of that. All of that feedback needs to come back. We need all that feedback to then feedback right at the beginning to hone our design. Because we as designers, we design against the archetypes and the use cases. And I hate to say it, but we're not perfect. We may make the wrong decision. We may decide on a feature that isn't really the feature that you want, or you may start using that feature in a different way. So we need to have a way of remedying that, move with the flow. You retrain your agents on a very regular basis, retrain your technology on a regular basis. It doesn't need to be complex, but just that goes into the mindset. Have we improved? And it's not just have we got a better automation rate, but do customers get on better with our technology? So really, just to sum up here, the customer experience and the user experience sit together. So if you want a definition of it, you focus with your user experience on your product, on your platform, on your service. Your customer experience focuses on the relationship. So it's about measuring what comes back, what the customer says, voice of the customer, your dashboards, that kind of thing. But they work together. Because if there's a big gap, what you don't want to do is what my utility example was, rely, in my case, on an agent to fix that customer experience, much like in Stu's initial video. It's what it always is. It's normal. It's become normal. We don't want to do that. We don't want to rely on it being normal. Keep an eye on both of these, and then we'll be happy. Thank you.